The rain begins before sunrise, tapping against the glass like it's counting all the hours they ignored him. The house is quiet, swollen with the kind of silence that follows words never taken back. A car door slams. Then, another. They're home again, but not for him. Only for what's left of him. The rooms remember every argument, every cruel laugh that broke something delicate inside him. Sometimes, love hides behind meanness, but cruelty never forgets its echo. As they walk through the doorway, each footstep feels like trespassing on guilt. How many chances do we get to love someone before it's too late? The house smells like damp earth and old memories. In the corner, Ethan's paint-stained shoes remain by the door. No one moves them. Daniel breaks the silence first, asking where the service will be, though what he really means is, how did we let it come to this? Lily pours coffee. She won't drink. Their mother whispers that Ethan asked for soft music, not sermons. The words feel foreign in her mouth, as if his wishes belong to someone braver. Outside, thunder rumbles softly, echoing the guilt inside their chests. They find the key to the shed taped under the window sill, the one Ethan called, his place of peace. No one speaks as Daniel opens the door. The smell of turpentine and rain greets them. His paintings line the walls, colors alive in a room that outlived its maker. Lily's lips part slightly, her breath hitching. For a moment, it's like he never left, but the silence reminds them he only found peace when they stopped looking. In a box by the easel lies a sealed envelope marked, "For whoever learns to see." Daniel picks it up, his calloused fingers trembling. Lily tells him not to open it yet, that it's probably private. He laughs bitterly. We never cared about his privacy when he was alive. The rain softens outside, replaced by the ticking of an old clock. The sound feels like judgment. That night, no one sleeps. Margaret sits at the window, tracing the condensation with her finger. Lily lies awake on the couch, clutching her phone but not scrolling. Daniel smokes outside, his reflection caught in the dark glass. Half alive, half memory. Somewhere between guilt and grace, a question lingers like fog. If love had come sooner, would he still be here? Morning light filters through thin curtains, turning dust into golden mist. Daniel wakes in the old guest room, surrounded by boxes of things Ethan left behind. The air smells of paint and rain. He finds a sketchbook on the nightstand, pages filled with faces, some familiar, some imagined. There he is, drawn not as the brother who mocked, but as someone Ethan believed could change. Daniel's throat tightens. The world outside continues, indifferent to what's broken inside him. For the first time, he whispers an apology into the emptiness, unsure who it's meant for. In the kitchen, Lily watches her mother fix tea with hands that shake too much to pretend anymore. The kettle whistles, but neither moves. Margaret says she dreamed of Ethan standing by the garden, smiling like he used to after the rain. Lily forces a laugh, calling it grief's trick, but her voice breaks halfway through. There's a pause, the kind that feels like confession. Margaret whispers that she should have defended him more. That kindness is louder when it's too late. The teacups remain untouched, steam fading between them like forgotten warmth. The shed draws them back like gravity. Inside, the letter still waits unopened. Daniel studies Ethan's brush strokes, bold, messy, full of feeling. Lily asks quietly if they ever told him they were proud. The silence that follows answers for them. Daniel kneels, tracing dried paint with his finger, and mutters that maybe Ethan already knew. Maybe he saw their love, even when they didn't. But the tremor in his voice betrays the lie. Behind them, the half-finished portrait of the family seems to breathe, its empty space demanding to be seen. Later that day, the pastor arrives. Reverend Caleb Hart, the man who once sat with Ethan in the garden when the others wouldn't. His voice is calm but heavy with knowing. He tells them Ethan found peace in painting people as he wished them to be, not as they were. He leaves a folded note, written in Ethan's handwriting, meant to be read at the service. The family gathers around it, unsure whether to open it now or wait. Lily whispers that maybe forgiveness comes in stages, one page at a time. Night falls again. The letter sits under a lamp, its shadow long across the table. Daniel pours whiskey but doesn't drink. Lily writes in her phone's notes, a message she'll never send. Margaret hums softly, the lullaby she used to sing when all three children still fit on her lap. The sound fills the room with something fragile, something almost like forgiveness. Outside, the rain stops, leaving only the quiet rhythm of dripping eaves. The unopened letter waits, patient, like Ethan himself, still teaching them how to see. The next morning, the letter finally opens. The handwriting is careful, almost shy. Ethan's words spill softly across the page. Not blame, not sorrow, but gratitude. He thanks them for teaching him that even pain has a voice. He writes about how he learned to forgive long before they ever said sorry. Daniel reads aloud, his voice cracking halfway through, and the room feels smaller with every word. The letter ends with one line that lingers in the air like smoke. If you ever wish to know me, look where the light meets the rain. Later, they drive to the lake where Ethan once painted sunsets. The sky hangs low and gray, the water still and glassy. Daniel remembers teasing Ethan for spending whole days watching reflections. Lily admits she never looked long enough to see what he saw. They sit in silence, each realizing how blind they'd been to beauty when it lived so close. The ripples on the surface shimmer faintly, and for the first time they understand. Ethan didn't chase peace. He built it here, brushstroke by brushstroke. That afternoon, Lily finds Ethan's old voicemail on her phone. A message she never played. His voice, quiet and hesitant, fills the room. He thanks her for a birthday card she never sent, then says he hopes she's happy. The words crumble her. Daniel steps closer but says nothing. The sound of Ethan's voice is too alive, too forgiving. Lily sinks into the couch, tears falling freely for the first time. Some truths only arrive when the silence is ready to hold them. Richard Teams. In the shed, Daniel discovers a hidden drawer under Ethan's workbench, filled with unfinished portraits. One shows the three of them together, their faces radiant and kind. Another shows Ethan alone, sitting beneath the same oak tree from their childhood yard. Daniel's breath catches. He realizes Ethan saw them not as they were, but as he hoped they could be. He runs his thumb over the paint, smudging it slightly, and for a fleeting moment, it feels like touching forgiveness itself. That night, they gather around the kitchen table again. The same table where they once mocked him for painting instead of working. Now they place one of his brushes at the center, like a relic. Margaret prays softly, her voice trembling. Daniel and Lily join hands without looking at each other. The silence stretches, not heavy this time, but full of what they finally feel. Above them, the ceiling creaks with the house's slow breath. And for a brief, sacred moment, it feels like Ethan is home again. The church bells toll before sunrise, each note hollow, like an echo through years they can't reclaim. The townspeople file in slowly, faces solemn, umbrellas dripping at the doorway. Daniel, Lily, and Margaret move together but apart, three shadows bound by the same loss. Inside, the scent of lilies and candle wax fills the air. The coffin rests beneath stained glass light, colors shifting gently across Ethan's photograph. Daniel whispers that the world feels quieter without his laughter, and Lily only nods, afraid her voice might break the fragile peace that's left. Reverend Caleb Hart begins to speak. His voice is low, reverent, shaped by memory. He tells the congregation that Ethan once said the world was kinder when seen through colors. He reads from Ethan's journal. Words about patience, forgiveness, and finding beauty in people who forget to look for it. Daniel lowers his head, fighting the sting in his eyes. Lily grips her mother's hand. Every word feels like sunlight cutting through a storm they created. For the first time, their shame turns into something softer. Something that almost feels like grace. As the service continues, Reverend Caleb lifts one of Ethan's paintings, revealing a self-portrait, not of sadness, but of peace. The congregation murmurs softly. Margaret reaches out, fingers trembling. Daniel realizes the light in the painting comes from the same direction as the church window, as though Ethan painted it knowing this day would come. Lily closes her eyes. The moment stretches long and silent, filled with the unspoken truth that love survives in ways they never expected. Outside the church, the rain has stopped. The ground is soft underfoot as they gather around the open grave. Birds sing hesitantly from the trees, their voices thin but alive. Daniel lowers a folded note into the earth, not written for Ethan, but for himself. Lily drops a white daisy. Margaret whispers her son's name, the sound barely carrying through the wind. The pastor's voice fades into silence, and for a long moment they stand together. Three figures framed by the tender ache of forgiveness. The family remains after everyone leaves. The cemetery grows quiet, wind whispering through tall grass. Daniel speaks softly, the apology he's carried too long. Lily tells Ethan she finally understands why he saw beauty in everything. Margaret hums the lullaby she once sang to all three. The sun dips low, scattering gold across the stone. For the first time since his death, they no longer feel haunted, only connected. The world breathes again, and in that breath, Ethan's presence lingers, gentle, forgiving, endless. That night, rain returns like a confession. Daniel sits alone in his truck outside the church, the letter still in his hand. Every word burns. Every memory claws its way back. The teasing, the silence, the night Ethan walked out. When Lily taps on the window, he doesn't look up. She asks if he's coming home, but he says he's not sure where home even is anymore. She slides into the passenger seat, the air between them thick with all they never said. Forgiveness starts quietly, like rain on nettle, soft but relentless. The silence breaks. Daniel tells Lily that he used to wish Ethan were more like him, stronger, tougher, easier to understand. His voice trembles when he admits that maybe Ethan was the stronger one all along. Lily whispers that she mocked Ethan because she feared being seen as fragile too. Their eyes meet, both realizing they weren't cruel because they hated him. They were cruel because they couldn't face their own softness. Rain patters gently on the roof, and between them, the first real understanding begins to form. When they finally drive home, the storm eases into a steady drizzle. Margaret waits by the porch, her shawl drawn tight around her. She doesn't scold, doesn't speak, just opens the door. Inside, the air is warm, carrying in the scent of rain-soaked earth. The three of them sit at the table again, and Daniel slides Ethan's letter across to her. She reads in silence, then looks up and simply says, "He forgave us before we asked." The words fall like a benediction, wrapping around them like light after thunder. Later that evening, Daniel steps outside, drawn to the garden shed. He opens the door and stares at the half-finished portrait of the family. The colors are faint, brushstrokes tentative, as if Ethan ran out of time or faith. Daniel touches the canvas gently and whispers, "I'll finish it." Behind him, Lily joins, eyes glistening. Together, they find Ethan's paint still wet enough to move. Margaret stands in the doorway, silent, watching her children rebuild what time tried to erase. By midnight, the rain has stopped. The painting rests complete enough to breathe, unfinished enough to remember him. Daniel sits back, covered in streaks of color. Lily laughs softly through tears, and Margaret wipes paint from her palms. The house hums with the faint sound of crickets and wind. For the first time, they speak of Ethan in the present tense, not as someone gone, but someone still shaping them. Forgiveness doesn't erase pain. It transforms it. And in that transformation, they finally find him again. Morning drifts in quietly through gauzy curtains. The storm is gone, leaving air that smells of wet soil and renewal. Margaret stands at the kitchen window, reading Ethan's letter again. Each word feels different now. Lighter, as if the paper itself has begun to forgive her too. Daniel pours coffee, his movements slow but sure. Lily hums a tune Ethan once loved. The house doesn't feel haunted anymore. It feels inhabited by memory. Forgiveness has stopped being an idea. It's become the air they breathe. Later, they return to the shed together. The portrait stands finished, a reflection of their healing. Daniel notices a faint inscription in the corner, barely visible beneath the paint. See what love could have been. The words hit like sunlight through leaves. Lily presses her palm over the message, and tears slip silently down her cheek. They realize Ethan didn't leave this as a goodbye, but as a challenge to become the people he always saw beneath their fear. The silence feels sacred. That afternoon, they drive to the community center where Ethan once volunteered. The walls are covered with his murals. Children laughing, rivers shimmering, hands reaching toward the sky. Daniel traces the colors, whispering that he never knew how much Ethan gave to others. Lily reads a plaque beneath one painting, dedicated to those who see beauty in broken things. They stand still, letting the quiet admiration of strangers fill what guilt once occupied. Margaret smiles through tears. Her son left behind a world that had already forgiven him. Back home, Daniel finds another small canvas tucked behind a bookshelf, a painting of the three of them standing together beneath a tree, each holding a lantern. The figures are imperfect, blurred at the edges, but the light in their hands burns bright. He shows it to Lily and Margaret, and together they hang it above the fireplace. It doesn't match the room, but that's the point. It changes it. The house finally feels complete. Not perfect, but honest, like a scar healed in color. As dusk falls, they sit together on the porch. The garden hums with the quiet song of evening. Daniel finally says it aloud. He was the best of us. Lily nods, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. Margaret replies softly, he still is. They watch the horizon fade into lavender and gold, the light melting into the trees. Somewhere beyond, Ethan's spirit feels close. Not watching, not waiting, but resting. Love doesn't vanish. It just changes shape until we learn how to see it again. Weeks pass. The air grows warmer, and the garden begins to bloom again. Daniel decides to rebuild the shed, not as a shrine, but as a shrine. Lily brings fresh paint. Margaret plants wildflowers along the fence. Every brushstroke feels like a conversation with Ethan. Every petal a word they never spoke. The house no longer mourns, it hums. Healing doesn't arrive with grand gestures. It grows quietly, like ivy reclaiming an old wall, soft and unstoppable. Later that day, Daniel finds a forgotten box of Ethan's supplies, brushes, half-used tubes of paint, and a small unmarked journal. Inside are rough sketches of their faces, drawn with tenderness and hope. In the margins, Ethan had written small notes. Hell, find his peace. Shall see her light again. Daniel reads them aloud to Lily and Margaret, his voice breaking halfway through. It's as if Ethan had already known this moment, that their healing would be his final work of art. At dusk, they unveil the finished portrait, the one they completed together. It hangs in the living room now, facing the window where Ethan once sat sketching sunsets. Lily lights a candle beneath it. Margaret traces the outline of Ethan's painted face. Daniel whispers, he's home. The room feels fuller, softer, lighter. Outside, the wind stirs through the garden, carrying the scent of lilies and rain. as if Ethan himself is breathing one last sigh of peace through the walls that once held his pain. That evening, Daniel visits the cemetery alone. He kneels before Ethan's grave, the grass cool beneath his palms. He talks softly about the shed, the portrait, their mother's garden. He admits he was wrong. That strength was never about silence. He thanks Ethan for seeing what he couldn't. When he stands, the wind moves through the trees, and for a fleeting second he hears a laugh carried through the leaves, light, familiar, and free. It doesn't feel like goodbye. It feels like hello. Months later, the garden bursts with color. The shed doors stand open, filled with laughter and music again. Daniel paints now, slowly, imperfectly, but with heart. Lily reads aloud from Ethan's journal, her voice steady. Margaret watches from the porch, eyes closed, letting sunlight warm her face. The camera lingers on the portrait hanging inside the shed. 4 figures together at last. The wind moves through the flowers, carrying a single unspoken truth. Love never ends. It only learns new ways to return home.